DJ Lil create vibes now.
Episode of the Get Love Like Mine podcast. We are your humble hosts. I'm Keisha Amos. This is my beautiful husband, Sam Amos. This is season 2, episode 11. Moving right along. We want to thank you guys for all the positive feedback that we've received. If you're not already following us, make sure you do. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Get Love Like Mine podcast. I am really grateful for the feedback that we got about the podcast this week. Sometimes I battle with, is it worth my time to keep doing it? But as long as I know people are listening and it's helping somebody, we'll keep doing it.
And enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to do something a little bit different this week. This is literally Asked the Amoses. We have decided to ask each other a couple of questions and answer, and we hope that our answers will give you guys fresh perspective. So we will start with you, honey bun.
Okay, so I had an incident years ago, and I'll tell my story.
Okay.
After I ask the question. I'll give you a chance to answer the question. But here's the question. The question is, how do you feel about spanking someone else's kid in your house? Is it okay to spank someone else's kid in your house, whether it be a family member, a co-worker, a friend? Let me make the scenario here. So the parents aren't there, but the kids are. I don't know, maybe they're playing with your kid, or maybe it's a kid's birthday party, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, let's say this kid is doing something that they're just bad kids, and they're doing something that they don't have no business doing, and you've already spoke to them once or maybe even twice about not doing it, and they just look you right in the eye and do it anyway.
You might as well tell your story first.
Okay, so years ago, this was one of my wife's family members. They came over. We had
I think it was a Super Bowl
party. Okay. Mm-hmm. Either way, we had a large crowd of people there, and in this setting, the parents were there. So they came over. The kids were upstairs. A lot of kids, people were all over the house really, but those particular parents were downstairs. But the kids were upstairs in the game room. There's a lot of kids around the pool table. So everybody's watching the game, and the kids are in other rooms throwing the pool balls at each other. And I'm hearing them bang, bang, bang on the table. So it's like, I better get up and go check on this. Mm-hmm. This wasn't the first time I had to go check and break these kids up from doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. They were just bad kids. So anyway, I tell the kids, look, hey man, somebody's going to get hurt. Stop throwing these pool balls at each other. And so the kid looks right at me and reaches in the pocket and gets another ball and lets it go. And the way we were raised, you just don't disrespect adults on that level. So before I know it, whack up, I had popped the kid. And he was so shocked, he couldn't, tears just jumped out of his eyes. He was crying so hard. So the dad comes and checks on the kid, or the kid goes downstairs and says, hey man, the strange man upstairs hit me. And so the dad's angry. He says, I better get out of here before I shoot somebody. So I'm already angry also. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, yeah, you better go. Because you knew those kids were bad before you came here. They should have been sitting right by your side. Don't leave your kids unattended in someone else's house, and you know what they're capable of. So these kids are throwing balls.
Pool balls.
Hard cement balls, right?
Break the TV.
And the parents are downstairs. They could not care less. They're like, I'm glad to get a break from these kids. Mm-hmm. But if you know your kids are bad when you came in the door, see, your kids didn't just start acting like this. They act like this at home. You probably just stick them in the room, close the door, and ignore them. So then they go out in public and act like this. And then when somebody else doesn't, just ignore them like you, now you're angry. So I will pass the mic.
Okay. So I think this is situational. For starters, I come from a large family on both sides. So I've been to so many family gatherings where the kids are in one place and the adults are somewhere else. And I agree that if you know your kid is destructive, curious,
disobedient,
if you know they steal, if you know they break stuff constantly, like, keep an eye on your kid. Don't bring them to somebody's house and just let them have at it when you know they have a history of whatever behavior. However, I don't really believe in whooping other people's kids because I know if it were my kid, I would have an issue. Well, for starters, my kids aren't bad. My kids aren't destructive. So my kids, if by chance my kids go to your house and they are doing something with your kid and they're both doing it and you whoop them both, maybe I wouldn't be mad. But if my kid's not doing it and your kid is, and then you know how some people are of the mindset, I'm gonna whoop everybody, and you whoop my kid and my kid wasn't doing nothing, I'm gonna be upset. But in this story that you tell, of course I'm in the middle because it's my family, but you're my husband and this is my house. So like I said, if you know your kid, you don't just let your kid run loose in the house. You need to be checking on them periodically to make sure they're not doing anything. And I mean, to be honest, in the situation that you were in, I may have done the same thing. Only because that child was totally disrespectful to look you in your face and do it again. It's one thing if I say y'all don't do that again and then you turn and walk out and then you come back because you hear the noise and they're all doing it again. That's one thing, because in that situation I would have went and got the parent and said, look, I done told your kid more than one time to stop throwing these pool balls and they're still doing it. You need to talk to your kid before I talk to him one more time, because the next time I have to talk to him, I'm bringing my belt out. But I generally just don't believe in whooping people's kids, because generally I don't know how you whoop your kids. You might whoop your kids with extension cords or broomsticks or whatever, and I don't whoop my kids like that. So I wouldn't want you putting your hands on my kid, so I wouldn't do it. Just like, my stepkids, I think I've said once before, I've never spanked either of my stepkids, and I've been in their lives well long enough to have whooped them, and I never did. And it's not because they never deserved a whooping. I just felt like you as the parent should handle that, and then I would never want them going back telling their mom, my stepmother hit me, So and I feel the same way if my daughter went to her dad's house. If her stepmother hit her, like, I don't even like her daddy whooping her because I don't, that's a whole nother topic. But I just don't believe you should whoop people's kids. But in family gathering type situations, if you know your kids are bad, don't just let them run loose in people's house and then get mad when somebody protects their home and their things and other children. Because those pool balls, like, what if he'd have cracked somebody in the head with one of those, or threw it and it hit somebody's hand, a little person's hand, and broke their finger or something, and then what would you say?
Oh, you could have threw it and broke a window.
The TV, anything.
And so the kid, he wasn't by himself. It was him and, I don't know if he had a sister, but it was another little girl. They were throwing them at each other. Mm-hmm. So she didn't throw anymore after
you told her.
Yeah, after I told him, somebody's gonna get hurt, but he did. He was like, man, I don't know who you are, but I'm not.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I don't feel the need to stop right now.
Well, yeah, I just don't believe in whooping people's kids. But in that instant, I probably would have handled it different. I mean, well, it's hard to say. The fact that he looked me in my face and did it, it might have just been a reflex.
And I think that's really what happened to me, because I don't think I've ever whooped anybody else's kid before, and I don't even consider that like a whooping, but it was a reflex. Like I was kind of outdone that you just looked at me like
Yeah.
I didn't just say what I said, and I did. So
Yeah, but we grown, and I shouldn't have to run and tell your parent every time you're doing something wrong, especially if you just gonna keep doing it. Like, your parent should really have been monitoring you. Like, just like you heard the noise, everybody downstairs probably heard the noise. So when you go to somebody's house and you know your kids, just like mamas, I know my child's cry. So if I'm sitting downstairs at a party and I hear a cry, I'll listen. Oh, that's my baby? Oh, let me go see what's going on. But they weren't monitoring their kids.
okay, so your turn.
Okay. So I'll ask this only because of a little video that I saw this week. How do you know when it's time to break up? How did you know? I'll use your first marriage as an example. How did you know when it was time to walk away?
I think a lot of my decision, it kind of came over time. Like, I didn't just wake up and be like, this is it. Like, I debated with it quite a bit, but there was such an accumulation of things that built up over time where I just felt like this is not fruitful. This is not, I could call it dysfunctional, borderline, whatever, but it just was not a productive relationship to me. And like I say, over time, things kept mounting up, adding up, and it just had me thinking, I probably was thinking about it way too much. And then, I started talking to, like, I had a lot of church members talk to me, I had a lot of family members talk to me, so I was able to assess, was it moving forward, was it sitting still, or was it moving backwards? To me, it had gotten to a sitting still point for a while, and then it did feel like it was just moving backwards. So it was hard. The relationship, not so much, because that had its dysfunctional components, but for the kids, definitely it was really hard, because my kids were super young, like what, 6, 7, and 2 or something like that.
Weren't they young? I think the little one was 4. So those was like 7 and 8 or 9 and 10, something like that.
You also have.
Yes, in my situation, I had really fallen out of love. Like, I had taken so much had happened before we even got married. And on my wedding day, I had what they call cold feet, but I think that was really the Holy Spirit telling me, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this, because it didn't feel right. But I knew I wanted to have a baby. I was 25. He was willing to marry me. And so I didn't want to have a baby out of wedlock. So I got married anyway to build the family. And immediately after we got married, he was like, I don't want to have no more kids. And I'm like, what? It's the only reason I did this. So it took time to convince him otherwise. And so my daughter was born like 2 days before our 2-year wedding anniversary. But after she was born, my meter for, like, I've said this before, I can take a lot. but my meter of what I was going to take from him went from here to here. Like, I'm somebody's mama now. I have somebody whose well-being I really have to look after. This stuff that you putting me through, I don't have time for that. And in our particular instance, the Super Bowl had come to Houston. My daughter was 8 months old. And I think I said last week that he and I really weren't spending much time together. So one of my friends invited me to a party that night. He told me he wasn't participating in any Super Bowl festivities, but he left the house at 5 p.m. saying he was going to the mall with his friends. So I'm like, whatever, well, I'm going to this party tonight. Hopefully you'll be back. Like, the mall closed at 9. Well, the mall closed at 9. He wasn't back. And my friend had bought tickets to the party we went to. So I called my mom and was like, will you watch my daughter for me? So she did. But she told me she couldn't spend the night. I had to go back and get her. So we went to the party. He wouldn't return my calls, answering the phone, none of that. I went and got my daughter around midnight, got home. It might have been a little after midnight, because I think it was like 1:30 when I got home. He still wasn't home. So for a minute I started thinking something done happened, because, you know, who goes to the mall at 5 and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you still not home? Like, surely you're not still at the mall and you're not answering, you're not calling back. So we didn't live in the best neighborhood, and we were in an apartment, so I locked the top lock, because I'm like, well, I don't know where he is, and it's just me and my daughter in here. And so about 5 in the morning, I wake up to hear my car starting. My car was parked right outside my window. I hear my car starting and driving away. So I'm like, oh Lord, somebody done stole my car. I wake up, jump up, and I saw that he had called. So I called him back, and he answers the phone and says he's on the way to his mom's house. And I'm like, you're in my car? He was like, yeah. My homeboy dropped me off and you locked me out, so I'm going to my mom's house. And I was like, come home, like, bring my car back. So he comes in, sloppy drunk, and my daughter sleep in her room, but she heard him, so I go in to check on her. And you know, I did say something out of line, like I cursed him. I'll admit that. But his reaction was violent, and so violent that I just couldn't believe he would do that to me in front of my daughter. Like, we had never experienced anything like that before. And so after that, it was as if all the love I had for him just oozed out. And so I didn't leave immediately, but I started planning my departure. So that, like I said, that was in February, and by May 1st, I had taken money out of my retirement, went and put some furniture on layaway. I had went and gotten another apartment in my name alone. And on May 1st, when the lease was up, I left. So it took me 3 months. Within that time, I planned my departure, but I knew that day that there was nothing else, that I was leaving. I think I mentioned this before, that my dad was abusive to my mom. And she would leave and come back, leave and come back, leave and come back. And I knew the effect it had on me as a child, and I wasn't going to put my daughter through that. So even though I never wanted to get a divorce, I wanted to have that family, that wasn't the family that I was going to allow her to be a part of, so I left.
So we both discussed our previous marriage and how much of a learning experience it was. Like, I don't regret it, but I learned a lot from it. Like, if this is your first time being married, you don't really know what you want or need until, like, you're already on the playing field, and then you kind of figure it out as you go. So it kind of set the stage for, if I do something different or move on, or get a divorce from this, then I'll know next time what to look for, what I want in a wife, what I don't want, what I need, what kind of relationship. So it's like a lot of things in life. It doesn't really matter what all you go through if you learn from it. You know, so I definitely learned from it.
It ain't like I divorced him and then got with somebody else who did the exact same thing
over and over, because we see that all the time when it comes to relationships, that people get married for, I have a coworker that got married 5-6 times. I don't know how many it is. I don't like count them or hold it against him or whatever, but he keeps meeting the same kind of women in the same kind of places, and the relationship kind of takes the same kind of path, but it ends up in divorce, and then he's right back finding another
on
way.
to the next one,
right,
within a couple of months.
Okay, so was that your question for me or my question for you?
That was your question for me.
Okay, so no, that was your question for me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so my next question, I said it one way, but I meant to say it another way. It was said, what is it about men that you wish women understood? But what I really would like to ask you, what is it about women that you wish men understood?
Oh, I thought we answered that already.
Maybe, but let's reiterate.
What is it about women that I wish men? How about I answer that way and you answer the other way?
Okay.
What is it about women that I wish men understood? I answered this already, but I'll reiterate.
Okay, well, answer the other one then.
Yeah, okay. So, what about men that I wish women,
Yeah, what is it about men
Yeah.
that you wish women understood?
you're really the only man that I know, that I know. But I think that men have a real issue with women treating them like a kid.
Right. I can agree with that.
I've heard more than one man, have an issue with how a woman speaks to him and don't talk to me like I'm a child. But at the same time, they almost want you to treat them like a mother. Like they want you to be nurturing and loving and caring and take care of them when they're sick and take care of them when they're hurt or sad. They want you to do motherly things, but still treat them like the man that they are. Still allow them to, be the man, to assert their masculinity. And I think that's one of the main things is, just learning how to communicate with them. Because I see so many relationships that fail due to how the woman talks to the man. And I know, especially if you've been a single mom, like you have to assert yourself almost in a manly way. When you're the only parent in the house, because I went through this with my daughter. You have to, of course, be that nurturing parent, but you have to also be the disciplinarian. So when I see you messing up, or like the instance you gave, if you're throwing a pool ball and I tell you don't throw the pool ball, and then you look at me and do it again, or you wait until I walk out the room and do it again, like I'm having to repeat myself. So of course I might start fussing or yelling or whatever. So we find ourselves when we're dealing with a man talking to them that same way. Like, didn't I tell you don't put your dirty clothes on the floor? Didn't I tell you don't leave your underwear laying in the bathroom? Like, but that's not how men want to be spoken to. And I would think we could appreciate that, because I don't want to be spoken to, in a disrespectful manner by my man either.
So, before we go too far, I won't lose my thought. Being a mom and a wife, where's the line there? What can you share with us? How do you separate the two so you don't tell the kid, hey, come get this trash up off the floor, and then look at the husband, hey, you too. Oh, how do you, what can you tell us about separating the two? Because that's basically what you're going to have to do, is learn how to separate the two. And even, let's say you're in a hot-headed moment, you know, your temper is flared behind the kid, and then the husband does something stupid. So,
well, first of all, husbands don't do nothing stupid.
Yeah, at least try not to. It may just be in us, but go ahead.
But I think the line comes from the level of respect that you have for your husband.
Gotta have respect.
Gotta have it.
Okay.
Because if we can use your job as an example. When you go to work and the CEO of the company or your supervisor comes on the floor, you don't talk to them the way you may talk to your coworker that's slacking off. Your coworker that's slacking off, you might be like, oh man, you need to get up, you sorry, you don't do no work. But when your upper level management comes in, you give them a level of respect. How you doing this morning, sir? No matter what you think about them behind their back, you have enough respect for them not to say it in their face. So I think you have to have that same respect level when it comes to your husband. Regardless of what he's doing and what you think about him behind his back, whatever stupid he did, you have to have this level of respect that's much higher than what you have for the kids. And that will stop you from going too far. From crossing that line, because it's a consequence for crossing that line. What if you get fired? You know what I mean? What if your husband
fires back,
starts treating you that way, talking to you that way? So I think it's all a level of respect. I use that example a lot when it comes to girls who I see, or boys. I'm not going to just put it on girls, but it's mostly girls that I see doing it. They act like they just cannot control themselves. Like, oh no, I'm about to tear this whole place up because she did this, and ain't nobody finna disrespect me or my kids or blah blah blah. But if your boss came up, and you're not gonna talk like that to your boss. If the cops came up, you're not gonna talk like that to the cops. If your pastor came up, you're not going to talk like that to the pastor, because you have a level of respect for them that lets you not. Most people, I'll use the grandmother, most people wouldn't curse in front of their grandmother, because it's a level of respect that you have for that person. So that level of respect is how you should learn to not speak to your husband the same way you speak to your kids. If you don't have any respect for him, I don't know how to gain it, how to make you gain it, but that level of respect that you should have for your significant other should stop you from talking to them like a child.
So basically, you saying is, you know how to act.
Oh yeah, you know how to act. You know how to act.
Oh.
You just acting like you can't control yourself, but you can control yourself if you need to.
Yeah, you got plenty of control. Like my mom used to say, oh, you got plenty of good sense. Yes.
So what do you wish women knew or women understood?
What do I wish
men?
Women understood about men? I don't know. I really would rather. It's easier for me to answer the other question, but
well, answer the other one.
No, I'm gonna go ahead because neither one of us touched on this one. So, what do I wish women understood about men? We are controlled by our ego is a real thing. Younger. Now, once we get older, most men grow out of, they take the ego suit off. Most. Some of them, especially I've heard of this so-called short man's disease, that it actually exists. That's an ego thing. But most men, once they get older and wiser, they can look back at their old self and say, man, they can see, man, I was a fool. Now, if they say it out loud or not, that's a different story. So I can look back at the old me and be like, wow, I was messing up. And I remember thinking, I thought I knew what I knew and I didn't know. And I'm not talking teenage either. I'm talking late 20s, 30s, up in there where you may have felt like you had it together. And then when you get to be older and reflect on yourself. See, I reflect on myself a lot. Some folks don't reflect on themselves because, number one, I don't feel like I did anything wrong. Number two, if I did, hey, it is what it is.
That's just who I am.
That's who I am. I'm not, I can't go back and change it. So what? What you want to do? But it takes a real man to admit his faults. I see where I was wrong. So not only do, I may apologize or wish I had done things different, but I'm going to try to help the younger guys when I see my younger self in my sons or in my co-workers. I say something. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, that's not worth it. So I wish women understood that men are controlled by their ego a lot, and we make a ton of mistakes. And a lot of times we don't want to admit we made a mistake. And we make mistakes all day, every day. Men in general don't realize how much stuff we mess up and aren't able to fix it. And even just stuff that come out of your mouth. Really the stuff you say. And a lot of times you may be right in what you said, but how you said it was wrong. Mm-hmm. So it goes back to the level of respect, and you need to know who you're talking to. You can't just blurt anything out to anybody and think it's gonna fly. But I wish women understood that. I don't know if it would make any difference to help the men out that women understood that, because women only gonna put up with so much and then they gonna cut you off. Mm-hmm. And now the men don't understand. Like, what did I do wrong? So that's why I would rather answer the question the other way, because I can talk to men all day long because I'm a man. I can look back and see all the faults and mistakes, and not saying I have it all together now, but I'm not that guy anymore.
Right.
There's a lot of things I wish I could go back and redo, and I can't. But that's just the way life goes. But at least I see them, and I can see alternative ways I could have dealt with stuff. I could have handled stuff. I could have approached things differently. I could have prepared for things differently that I didn't. All because either I didn't know or I thought I knew and I didn't. Mm-hmm. So
that ego.
Yeah, ego is a huge contributing factor in a man's mindset and his mentality. Now, if you find a man that's in Christ and really in him, not just the talk, like, does he pray? Does he know scripture? Can he read and tell you? Can he make sense out of scripture? I don't want these I went to church Sunday Christian. I want you to be able to tell me something that's in here and know what you're talking about. Okay, then I can. If you find a man like that, then you're probably on a much better track than dealing with the older guy, the young guy that's battling with his ego, because once the Holy Spirit comes in, ego comes out. Mm-hmm. So.
And I'm glad you said that. I kind of disagree about the going to church part, because most churches that I've been to, it was mostly women in there. The pastor himself might have been a man, but there was mostly women in the church. So to get a man who is just willing to go to church, at least shows that he's trying to get there. He is something he's seeking. So I would give him a few brownie points just for going, even if he's still acting like a heathen when he leave out. At least he's making the effort to put his ego aside. My first husband, that was a big thing for us. Like, I was trying to build my own relationship with God, And he just wasn't interested. Like, I would literally get up and get dressed on Sunday mornings, and if I'm putting on one thing, he taking something else off, like just trying to make me stay home and not go to church. So like when we divorced, that was one of the first things I started doing, was going to church. I just felt like it was a place I needed to be, I wanted to be, and he just was not willing to go, number one, and didn't really want me to go either. But speaking of that, that will be my last question to you is, what do you think about having a relationship with God versus going to church? Like, we all, it's quite obvious. If people say that all the time, that you don't have to go to church to have a relationship with God. And I know you don't. The church is inside you. But do you think if you have a relationship with God that you have an obligation to try to go to church as well?
I think a lot of that, in my opinion, depends on where you are in your walk with God. So if you have, like, we were raised in the church as kids. Now, we didn't want to go when we were kids. And I say we, I'm going to say me. I'm not going to speak for my other sisters. But I didn't want to go as regular as my mom went. But it was really because I didn't get anything out of it. You know, I was too young to understand. But the Bible says train your kid up in the way that he should go. So fast forward to from me being a kid, being drugged to church, to I leave home to go to college. And so now I'm grown, or getting there, and I can make my own decisions. I don't have my mom on college campus say, hey, get up and get dressed. You got 15 minutes. So it's my own choice. But because my mom forced me to go all those years, once I got to be older, Sunday morning something was missing. And even though I had my own choice whether I want to go or not, I didn't go in the beginning, but I just felt odd on Sundays until eventually I asked some folk around there, where could I go to church? Because I went to school in New York, so I was a long way from home. It wasn't like I was, right here in the community college or something. I didn't know where nothing was. So, and I didn't have a car, so someone told me where a church was that I could go to, and I rode my bike to it. It was about 45 minutes away, but I enjoyed the ride. But anyway, I think going to church is instrumental because, see, being religious is like following a set of rules to be disciplined enough to control yourself. See, you're trying to gain self-control when you start going to church and learn, what's in the Bible and how to conduct yourself. Proverbs, the whole book is about how to be a man, and it's talking to young boys. Great book. So learning these principles in life is great, and then but let's say 8 or 10 years down the road, you know a lot of Bible, you know a lot of scripture, you've learned a lot from it. To me, going to church is not as significant because now I know what's in here, I can help other folk around me, and I can have a relationship with God. I don't have to wait till Sunday to do it because I need God on Tuesdays, I need him on Friday, sometimes I'm going to need him on Wednesday. You don't know when your kid going to come here and say, all the airbags is out of my car. It's okay. If the car is okay, it's not that bad. But that may not be on Sunday. You may not be on your way to church. You might not say, well, I need the church to pray for my kids in the hospital or whatever. I gotta wait till Sunday. No. If you have that relationship, I can pray right here on Tuesday morning. on Friday evening. So to me, going to church is not as significant once you've built you a relationship. But if you're just starting off, going to church is great instrumentally to get your mindset, to gain self-control, to change how you were living and how you were thinking out there in the world. Because the world will beat you up and have you thinking all kind of crazy stuff, and here you are quoting stuff wrong. You know, how many times have you heard this quote? And then I'm gonna let you talk on this. The quote that money is the root of all evil. That's wrong. That's quoted wrong. There's one word missing out of that messed that quote up. So if you're telling me money is the root of all evil, we're gonna use this remote as money, right? If I take this money and go sit it in a room and close the door and never look in there again, is there evil going to be going on in that room? It's not. So you quoted it wrong. What it says is the love of money is the root of all evil. Because people love money, they do all kind of evil stuff to get it. Mm-hmm. Not money, not just something green. Oh, that money's green. Oh, green got to be the color of evil. No, that's quoted wrong.
Yeah. The way you just, your perspective on it is kind of how my life has gone. Like I said, when I was a new mom, around 27, I wanted to build my relationship with God. And my husband at the time wasn't allowing it. So once I got divorced, 28, I started going to church, and I started going frequent, like every Sunday. My church had leadership classes. I went to the leadership classes, so I would be in church all day on Sunday. Doing extra stuff, going to cell meetings. Like I needed it because I was what they call a baby Christian. Like I was learning. And not to say that I'm not still learning, because I am, but I'm a lot more disciplined and self-controlled to where when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is read my Bible and pray. My prayer life, like you said, back when I was 28, my prayer was on Sunday. That's when I was praying. But now I pray daily. And so my time going to church, I battle a lot with whether I should go to church or not. Only because I feel like I should, but it's so many other options. And when I say that, what I mean is my church comes on Facebook, my church comes on YouTube. I can watch the entire service from home. And my church is not close to my house, so even though church might be 2 hours, you got to add on another hour and a half of travel time, because it's 45 minutes from my house to the church, and then 45 minutes from the church back, and then you got to calculate about 20-30 minutes of just socializing at the church when the service is over. Girl, how you been doing? I ain't seen you, blah blah blah, all that. And it takes up a lot of my day. And
not to mention that part of the freeway is probably closed somewhere
every
weekend.
But I think when I started law school is when I really started feeling it, because it just wasn't enough hours in the day. And school was like a full-time job, which Saturday, of course, I had to try to devote time to my family. And then Sunday, I would be reading all day, preparing for school on Monday, because you have to have read in advance. And either I was going to do it on Sunday, or I was going to stay up till 2 a.m. every night trying to read, which I just can't do. But that also taught me discipline to devote time for God. Like I made him a part of my schedule, so that routine, I don't get away from it, and I'm still having my relationship with him. And despite me not going to church as frequent as I would like, he still blesses me abundantly. He still hears my prayers. He still speaks to me. He still sends others to speak to me. He still keeps his hedge of protection around me. So I like I said, I like the perspective that you gave, is that you need it in the beginning. You need to hear the word. You need to hear it. So that you're not misquoting or thinking that money is evil, because it's not. Because it's like a huge contradiction, because if you make the offering, and that's another thing, like I can pay my tithes. There's an app. My church has an app for the tithes. Like I can send my money in, or I can just go online and make a donation. My presence doesn't have to be in the temple for God to be with me. And but I love it. I love it when I go to church. Like I just feel so filled with the Holy Ghost. But I felt that at home too, just watching it. But like with COVID, everything slowed down. The church was closed, but like I said, they were still broadcasting, so I could still get the word. And I'm sure that my church would rather we all start coming back. But if I haven't, and sometimes I feel bad about it, but I still feel connected to God. I think if it ever got to a point where I felt disconnected, then I would have to recharge by showing up. So I don't know. A lot of people feel different. I love seeing people post, they're on Sunday with their Sunday best on, family going to church. I love that. And not taking anything from it, because to each his own. But I do feel like you could have a great relationship with God despite that. And we'll get ready to close, but I'll use my dad as an example. My dad, when I was growing up, especially after him and my mom divorced, they divorced when I was 7. And I would go to my dad's house and we were Catholic. He was Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. But every Sunday we got up and went to church. It was 1 hour. That was all it was going to be. You go in, you kneel, you sit, you stand, you kneel, you say the chant, you take communion, and we're out. We're on our way to Luby's or Piccadilly's or Wyatt's, wherever, to eat, and going to the mall, the movies, whatever. But I saw him going to church, but I didn't see a relationship with God. When I got to be in my teens, he stopped going to church. And I really didn't know what his relationship with God. When I turned 18, I stopped going to his house every weekend. The only time I would see him would be like if he came to me, or if I went to his job, because he just worked nonstop. Even on his off days, he would be at work. Holidays, he would be at work. But when he passed, and I went to his home that I hadn't been to in over 20 years and went inside, he had so much Christian learning material. Like he had started building a personal relationship with God. It didn't have anything to do with church. He had built a personal relationship with God. And at his funeral, or surrounding the time of his funeral, so many of his friends and colleagues came to me and expressed how he influenced them in their relationships with God. My daddy could literally tell you anything the Bible said. Like that's how much he studied it. And he wasn't going to church. He did this in his spare time, in his alone time. And so, at one point I was concerned about where he was going. But after going through his belongings at his home, I have no doubt my dad is in heaven. I have no doubt about that. I guess that's it. So we have an Ask the Amoses question. I saw this on Facebook and figured it was something we could discuss, but I want to warn you, I'm going to read it, but it has some vulgar words in it, so I'm not going to read those parts. But I just felt like it would be a good thing for us to discuss. So if you would like your question read on the show, send us an email to getalovelikemindepodcast@gmail.com and put Ask the Amoses in the subject line. So this young lady was talking about her fiance. She starts off with, my fiance, y'all. So she wants to know, is she wrong for wanting to cancel her fiance's ticket for her birthday trip? She said, we're supposed to go spend a week in St. Thomas next month. I paid for the flight and hotel. I've repeatedly told this man not to joke about any of my past traumas and to watch his tone with me, and he still chose to carry on. He never apologizes for anything, and the last 2 days I told him that he jokes and spoke with me on Easter. How he jokes and spoke with me on Easter really upset me. So he either needs to apologize, and until he does, he won't be getting any. He thought I was playing, and he tried to get some, and I told him, you need to apologize for hurting my feelings, because whenever I do something to you, you want me to apologize. So she said we just had a whole talk, and he goes on to tell me that he doesn't apologize because that's not who he is as a person. Well, that's fine, and I'm not going to be talked to any type of way by a man no more. So I told him I will be canceling his tickets and be vacationing by myself. And he says I'm taking it too far. And she says they've been together for 3 years. So she wants to know, is she taking it too far by canceling his flight and vacationing alone?
To me, it sounds like you need to cancel more than just a flight and a vacation. Like, I don't know how y'all got together, but it seems like y'all have some get along relationship issues that y'all need to work out. Because, I mean, like you say, she requested that he not make fun of her past or, you know, speak on it in a way like joking or whatever, and he obviously disregarded and did it anyway. And so evidently this is an ongoing problem that hasn't been fixed. And I don't see how this is fiance material.
Yeah, I don't even know how
Y'all are
either
still,
of you considered marriage.
how are y'all still going forward when the relationship is way back there?
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's talking about a vacation, but y'all, so the vacation is the least thing that needs to be. I mean, you know, if you don't want him with you on your vacation for, what was it, a birthday, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so when you get back, how's that gonna go?
Right.
Like, well, I had a good time. Did you see the pictures I posted of myself? I mean, I got a tan and everything. Sorry you weren't there. You ready to apologize yet?
And not to mention, she says, I told him he won't be getting any. I want to tell women something when it comes to that. You won't be getting any talk. I mean, first, you know, you should be waiting until you're married to have sex. But we know that you guys are not. If you're gonna be in a relationship, in a marriage with a man, withholding sex as punishment that's not you're gonna end up punishing yourself. I'm not saying when you're in the middle of fighting that you should just be like, come on.
Snatch your clothes off. Yeah. I know how to fix this.
But us as women like to use that as a you know, I'm gonna dangle this in front of him and take it away whenever I'm not getting what I want. And like my husband said, men are ruled by their ego. You rejecting them is only going to send them over here with this lady who is not rejecting them. So when you're telling him, I'm going on this trip by myself and I'm not giving you none before I leave. And then you go on the trip and you post that you having a jolly good time. And you come back and he's smiling and grinning and still ain't asking you for none. It's because he has already scratched that itch. He has already taken care of that need that you choose not to fulfill. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like us as women, like we're not tired, because we do a lot. Especially if you've ever been a single mom. I know how hard it is because I was a single mom for 10 years and I was a single mom of 1 kid, but I know moms who are single moms of 5 kids. Like, it's hard work. And it's hard to even feel sexy after putting in a full day of momming. But when you have your husband, remember I talked about that level of respect that you must have for your man. There also has to be a level of just connection between you and that man. And that level of connection is going to allow you to be vulnerable and open yourself to have sex, even when you're not full of energy, not bursting with energy. But withholding it, that should not be something that you do as punishment. You're really going to set yourself up to... I know how I am. If it's something that I'm constantly asking for and I'm being told no, I'll stop asking and just start doing what I need to do. And I'm not talking about sex in a relationship. I'm just talking about period. If I keep asking you to cook dinner and you keep telling me no, guess what? I'm not going to starve. I'm going to go in there and cook my own food. So you have to look at things a little logically and know that if this man has been with you 3-4 times a week and now you're telling him we're not doing it until you apologize and he's not apologizing, like, what you expect him to do?
Listen, Pastor Miles Monroe said your car needs gas to run, right? Mm-hmm. So when you pull up at the gas station and the gas station is closed, what do? You go find another gas station. So you can close the gas station if you want to. I got bad news for you. There are other gas stations that are wide open
24 hours a day.
24 hours a day. So keep that in mind when you close the gas station.
And then it kills me when women act like that and then they're so surprised that this man cheated. Like, how could he do this to me? Like, what did you expect him to do?
Give me my gun. I'm going to shoot him. You don't need to shoot him. You made a bad decision.
Yeah.
Like you say, I'm not saying let's rectify this problem while I'm steaming mad and I'm boiling over with emotion. But that's the time you need to sit down. We need to discuss this and get past it.
Right. So
that we can get back on the right track. But just be like, hey, look, I can outweight you. Well, I don't know. That may not be the smartest route to go, but do your thing.
All right. Well, that is it. We thank you guys for listening. Again, if you are not following us, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Get Love Like Mine Podcast. If you want your question answered on the show, send us an email with Asked the Amoses in the subject line to Get Love Like Mine Podcast at gmail.com. And we thank you guys for listening. Happy Sunday.